They tried to take my boat at 6 in the morning on a Tuesday, the kind of hour when even the birds are still rubbing sleep out of their eyes. And that was the moment I realized our HOA had finally lost the plot. I'm Cole Barrett, retired Coast Guard, stubborn owner of a 22-foot bass boat named Liberty's Wake. And yes, she sits on a poured concrete pad beside my garage, not on the street. Not blocking a soul, tucked just inside the line where my survey stakes live. I don't park junk, I maintain gear. There's a difference you can smell in the wax and see in the chrome, but apparently, nuance isn't part of our HOA handbook. It started with a robe, a mug, and a camera. Our HOA president, Trishon Zeller, the reigning champion of borrowed authority, rolled up in a golf cart. Diagonal parked on my lawn like a sheriff at a rodeo, and gave me that smile people practice in the mirror when they plan to say no while pretending they're doing you a favor. Cole, she said. Syrup on the voice and gravel under the wheels. We've had complaints. The boat is unsightly. Hurts the community aesthetic. From who? I asked without looking up from the shine on Liberty's trailer. Hitch. Can't disclose, she said. But the board has decided it needs to go. That's cute, I told her, since your covenants say nothing about vessels on private slabs. I read the whole packet twice. Because I'm the kind of man who reads the fine print on a parachute harness. She huffed something about updating the covenants, snapped a picture like she was tagging evidence, and rattled off in. That cart, tires chewing my grass in a perfect crescent. 2 days later, chains clanked against steel and hauled me out of sleep. I stepped onto the porch in boxers, in a bad mood to find a tow truck easing down my drive. A guy in a neon vest already feeding a chain through Liberty's axle. I told him calmly, the kind of calm you learn on black water at 2 a.m., to unhook. Now? He held up his hands, said he had a work order from the HOA. Did you check the property line? I asked. He hadn't. I was already recording. Down the street came Trishon with 2 board members in tow, Mark and Beverly, faces set like they'd practiced them. You can't interfere with a lawful tow, she called. Lawful where? You're on my land, I said, and land doesn't move because a clipboard says so. Only if you're blind to plat maps could you think otherwise. The driver unhooked and left. That should have been the end, but the thing about people who mistake position for power is they don't stop when they're wrong, they dig. So I dug deeper, too, right into my file box. When I bought the house 5 years back, I pulled every original community development plan from the county. I like paper that still smells like a clerk's desk. And there it was in black and white. That little lake the HOA bragged about in newsletters, the gazebo with the twinkle lights, the private dock. The lake maintenance fee, they'd been billing residents like a subscription. The parcel line said it wasn't theirs. It was mine. The developer never transferred the deed to the HOA. And when I closed on my property, the lakefront strip came with it. I pay taxes on it. My name, my parcel number, my bill, my land. I called my attorney, a quiet hammer named Randall Givens. And he said the words that make a veteran's pulse slow in a good way. You've got a golden ticket. I drafted trespass and eviction notices, posted one on the dock, one on the gate, one on their precious gazebo. 24 hours to remove all structures and cease use, effective immediately. Trishon arrived holding the paper like I'd dusted it with anthrax. You can't do this, she hissed. I told her I already had, and that the county assessor, tax rolls, and yes, her own handbook proved they'd been collecting fees for land they didn't own. That's not a misunderstanding. That's fraud with a manicure. Color drained from her face like someone pulled a plug. By noon the next day, 3 landscapers were dragging the gazebo off in the heat, like men atoning for something. The dock stayed, chained to the waterline like a stubborn dog, but I let it sit. We were building a record now. Randall filed a cease and desist, and I walked the perimeter with my camera, documenting every sign, outlet, and mystery box the HOA had slapped its name on. That's when I found the fish feeder on a timer, wired into an underground line running straight through my yard. Commercial use on residential property without permits. Inspectors live for days like that. 3 days later, a zoning inspector named Whitlock showed up, clipboard first, smile never. Minutes. He ran, but not far. Maintenance for the HOA. A guy named Darrell who admitted on the spot that he'd been told to disconnect anything that could get us fined. He hadn't realized he was cutting a homeowner's line. That's the problem with doing favors for people who whisper. You don't ask what room you're in. He left in cuffs for trespass and attempted vandalism of a utility. And he said the HOA had known for years the lake parcel wasn't deeded to them. They'd gambled I wouldn't notice. The county filed complaints for unpermitted structures. The power company investigated the tap, and the sheriff opened the HOA's books to daylight. That's when the neighborhood woke up. Marcy, 3 houses down, found me on my porch, cheeks red with the kind of anger that has receipts. She'd paid $50 a month in lake fees for 4 years, never told the land wasn't theirs. She took it to Facebook. Within hours, comments were a bonfire, screenshots of newsletters claiming exclusive HOA ownership, people posting words like refund and audit with the confidence of a crowd that finally saw the wires behind the curtain. Trishon called an emergency meeting. I sat in the front row with a folder thick enough to stop a small bullet. Before she got through, "We're here to address misunderstandings." I moved to suspend the board pending investigation into illegal land use and fraudulent fee collection. She tried the procedural shuffle. Agenda wasn't posted 72 hours in advance, and I told her we could wait for the sheriff to finish his audit instead. By weeks in, the HOA's account was frozen. The county stapled a condemnation notice to the dock, and a news crew came by to get a shot of me standing next to Liberty, while a county worker tagged the last illegal outlet with orange tape. I didn't need to gloat. The tape did the talking. Then the avalanche. Insurance dropped the HOA. No deed, no coverage. Liability evaporated. One stub toe on a plank, and every board member's personal assets were on the line. A deputy marshal named Lillian Cord stopped by, steel-eyed and polite, to open a formal investigation. Fraud, unauthorized use of private property, unlicensed construction. Did I ever grant permission? No. Any easement signed? None. Tax records in my name? Every year. Less than 2 days. Later, subpoenas landed in every board member's hands, and the sheriff walked them out of the clubhouse under a quiet sky full of phone cameras. With the board sidelined, the neighbors did what neighbors do when you take the hall monitor away. They started looking for themselves. Marcy and her husband Bruce, a retired IRS auditor with a high-powered love for spreadsheets, got hold of financial statements. Turns out, lake improvement fees totaled close to 90 grand over 3 years, but only a sliver reached the official budget. The rest took a detour into an account labeled Community Enrichment, where it somehow bought a Vegas conference, a catering contract from Beverly's cousin, and a pair of recliners that would have looked more honest in a cigar bar. A letter arrived from the HOA's council offering me 5 grand to drop trespass claims and stop talking to the press. I mailed it back with "not interested" and read across the top. The news station returned with a drone: clean shoreline, dock gone, gazebo gone, feeder dismantled, and ran the headline, "Boat Battle Spurs HOA Fraud Probe." After that came the city council aide, with a clipboard asking if I'd testify at an oversight panel. "Gladly," I said, "but bar them from office when this is done." "If the evidence supports it," she said, "we will." The community voted to dissolve the HOA entirely, corporate charter voided, enforcement gone, dues frozen. Volunteers formed an oversight group to keep the books transparent. The district attorney filed charges: wire fraud, misappropriation, conspiracy. The enrichment account traced straight back to an application Trishon had opened herself under the HOA's tax ID, with her face on every ATM camera like a photoshopped county maps to make my lake look like common land. 25 grand in ecosystem restoration went to a coffee bar and new floors at the office. That's not a line item, that's a fuse. The feds cut it. Neighbors did the rest. They organized a restitution plan once the court released the frozen assets, calculated every fraudulent lake fee back 5 years, reset everyone's HOA balance to 0. They started a community garden on a different lot, named it Liberty Patch. The streets got quieter. Kids chalked the sidewalks without a citation tucked under their handlebars. People waved again because waving wasn't a political act anymore, just neighborly. Mark from the board came by red-eyed, said he'd turned over his emails and would testify at sentencing. I told him the same thing the water tells a man who jumps in too deep: you still have to swim back. When the judge finally spoke, it wasn't angry, it was heavy. Abuse of trust, deliberate misrepresentation, Funds diverted for personal gain. 5 years. Parole eligible after 3. Restitution ordered. No cheers, just the kind of exhale you feel in your bones. The county closed its investigation. Our neighborhood reclassified as self-managed, non-governing. No dues, no board, no patrols with clipboards and a taste for theater. Just people. These days my mornings are simple. I step out with coffee, lean against Liberty's trailer, run a hand along the hull I've polished more times than I can count, and listen. Frogs in the reeds, a neighbor's dog tags jingling, the soft tick of a cooling engine somewhere down the street. Freedom doesn't always arrive loud. Sometimes it shows up in paperwork and patience, in boundaries held and maps read, in the quiet. Knowledge that if someone tries to tow the wrong boat again, the lesson is already written in the grain of a wooden bench facing a calm, private lake. Liberty's wake sits where she's always sat, shining, still, and if you squint you can read the little plaque I screwed onto the trailer after all this. You don't own what you didn't earn.